Hey everybody, in this video I thought we would go through how to create a flange for an oblique pen holder. The flange is the metal portion that you see here on the left edge of this right-hand oblique pen holder, and is the part that's going to make it uniquely oblique. And so there are only a couple of steps to creating something like this, and I thought I would just take you on a little journey of how to get from a sheet of brass all the way to a finished flange. Let's just jump into it. Okay, we will begin with a sheet of .010 craft brass, and we're going to take a straight edge of some kind and make a mark to cut that at 12 millimeters into a 12 millimeter strip. You can see I've made a mark just there. Okay, using my specialized metal cutting shears, I am going to run along that line and make sure that I is cutting as straight and as smooth as possible. Okay, we can set this piece aside, and this piece is going to be too long for making a flange, so we can cut that in half, and we can save 1/2 for later. Now, when you cut with the shears, there will be a certain side of your flange that rolls over and that creates a burr. You can feel it with your thumb. I can feel that that's round there, so the other side has the burr, and this one is round, and that means this side has the burr. So what I'm going to do there is I will take a piece of 400 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to run it along the edge to kind of clean that up and remove any of that burr, which is going to result in snagging on my nib and my flange snagging on my holder, my actual wooden holder body here in a moment. Okay, once you've taken that burr off, you should be able to feel it with your finger. Brass won't be too sharp when you cut it, but do be careful not to cut yourself. And once you're confident that you've gotten that burr off, you can take your little strip and we will just fold it in half with our fingers to create a nice little shape like that. Okay, notice that I'm leaving a little bit of a gap up here about where my fingers are grabbing. That's going to be useful later for adjusting my flange down the road for different pen sizes. Now I'll come in and I'm going to use a super specialized pair of pliers called baling pliers. They have two round jaws, as you can see, and I'm going to grab just slightly below that piece that I left out, just kind of a little bit of tongue peeking out, and then with my other hand I'm going to wrap the flange around the smaller of the two jaws and release. That creates a shape that should look something like a J. Okay, we are moving along quite well. We're going to open up the J, and inside we will insert a sacrificial nib. This is Gillette 404, which I am not a fan of. And once we're inside of that, we can get it kind of positioned like this. All right, I'm going to then grab the flange with a pair of duckbill pliers. I will make sure to leave a small tolerance between the edge of the pliers and the edge of the nib. That makes sure that when I bend the nib backwards, there's space for the nib to exist in there. I'll grab it with my fingers, and I'll go like that. Now you'll notice that the nib should have become loose right then, so I should be able to dump it out, and that's all fine. Now we're talking. We've got a flange that's in the right shape for fitting into our pen. Okay, now comes the question of what pen body are we going to be fitting this flange into. You'll notice that I already have a flange in this pen, but let's set that one aside for a moment. We'll make another one for this pen. So I know that the back of this pen slit is a certain shape, and that shape runs diagonally through the pen. Most pen slits run diagonally through the pen. There's also a little channel that you can see where there's a round hole that was drilled into the back. That was drilled in with a drill bit. During creation of the pen, I inserted a drill bit into the back of that channel, and you'll notice that that drill bit is not in axis with the pen. If your drill bit goes directly in axis with the pen, then that's a little bit different setup, and the situations for fitting this into your pen are slightly different, but the principle is the same. The drill bit creates what's called the retaining channel, and the retaining channel is what keeps the pen from sliding out the end. So it really serves one singular purpose. Okay, so the next step that we're going to do when we're getting ready to set up this stuff is we're going to take our flange that we've created and we're going to cut the ends off to be the same. And since I know the way my slit is created, I'm going to cut them at an angle to where I've now got something about like this shape. Now, this isn't perfect and you're going to have to make several cuts before you get it the exact right setup, but kind of go through that process piece by piece. Every time you cut the shears, take your sandpaper and you can work those burrs off with just a little bit of touching, and that will preserve the wood as you put your flange in and out of your pen during the setup. Okay. We'll now insert the flange into the pen like that, rock it forward, and it can slide in. Now you'll notice that this flange is, for one, it's going to be a little bit wider than the ones I normally make. For my pen, I like about 10 millimeters wide. I'm making them at 12 millimeters today because I was making one earlier for a friend. I was refitting a Century oblique holder. But that doesn't really matter so much. The width of your flange is going to be controlled mostly by the depth of your retaining channel, how far that was drilled in. If your retaining channel isn't drilled far enough and you make the flange too wide, then the flange will not fit down into the pen far enough, and you would be stuck with a flange that was jutting out the front of your pen like that, which is never any good. We want the flange down, and we want the interior angle right there where the barrel ends against the straight. We want that right at the corner of the face. So to do that, I'm going to slip the pen a little bit further down. We can see there. I need to take off a little bit of distance from left to right so that I can get that in there. I'll go here, and I'm going to snip just that same amount off. Make sure you always turn the cut down so that the pieces go to the table and don't fly off. You don't want those pieces getting into the vacuum cleaner. Make some simple cuts, and I will take the edges off one more time before doing a final fit inside of my pen. And you'll notice now that the flange fits perfectly where I want it to, the edge of the barrel being right at the edge of the staff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some simple wingtips to the back of this flange, and that fit will be almost complete. I can open up the flange slightly with my fingers, and using the duckbill pliers, once again, I can grab just the ever slightest portion of that, and I can bend it outwards, creating these little wing tips. I'll show this in just a moment. And those two little wing tips will allow me to retain myself inside of that retaining channel. If you find yourself having a hard time getting your pen in after you do the wing tips, you can pinch the bottom corner together so that they ease together when they're closed. Now you can see that the wing tips are closed at the bottom. I'll go back to my channel, I insert gently, and there we are. A perfectly fit flange into a pen, well adjusted. Now the only thing left to do is to make sure that I am set up for my nib, which we know was a little bit loose earlier. We can still see that it's still loose. So what I need to do there is you'll notice that I've got a little bit of extra space because I did that with my fingers instead of pinching with the pliers. And all I have to do now is take my baling pliers and once again with the smaller jaw on the inside, close that down, and I can insert my nib in. And that's a pretty good fit. Maybe one more. There we go. And you can see now that I can hold the pen up by the nib and it will not fall out and does not move around. That's all great and well and dandy. Now the last thing to do is to make any adjustments to my nib that I might want to do. So my preference would be to put a slight bend here, which would elevate the pitch of the pen. I can roll the pen in towards the staff by bending upwards here. And I've already set it by the angle that I cut the back of that slit, but the yaw would be the angle here of the nib as compared to the angle of the pen. All right, fairly straightforward, not very much to it. From a strip of metal to a flange in just 9 minutes. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.